Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the operating hours in Field Service Lightning. Operating hours are used to define the availability of mobile resources, aka field technicians, and when they can be scheduled for work. Operating hours are made up of time slots, which is a time period within a day when field service can be completed. Operating hours are used when creating service territories, service resources, and when customizing appointment booking. There are two ways that you can create operating hours. You can create them via the Field Service Lightning guided setup. Alternatively, you can also create them from the Operating Hours tab at the top of the navigation bar. Although the guided setup method is recommended by Salesforce, currently it really isn't ideal for creating operating hours because the pop-up window is too small. You'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that part. I'm going to still show you how to do it both ways, just so that you're aware of both ways that you can create operating hours. So we'll start with the guided setup method. To navigate the guided setup, from the homepage of the Field Service Admin app, click the Field Service Settings tab. From here, click on Go to Guided Setup. Next, we'll click on Create Service Territories. From here, you can select any of the service territories that are available. I'm going to select New York. And as you can see on the right-hand side where it says Operating Hours, there's this option where it says New Operating Hours. If we click on that, you can see the small pop-up window that I was referring to in the beginning of the video. This isn't exactly ideal since you're going to have to scroll through and you can barely see the options. So I'm going to exit out of this option. This will likely be fixed in the future. It could even just be a browser issue right now. But I just wanted to make sure that I covered this method of creating operating hours since it is the method that Salesforce recommends. So the other way that you can create operating hours that I mentioned is by clicking on the Operating Hours tab at the top of the navigation bar. From here, you can see all the operating hours that currently exist. To create new operating hours, I'm going to click the New button. So I'm going to name these new operating hours Cloud Qualified East Coast, and then I'm going to change the time zone from Los Angeles to New York, and then I'll click Save. So now that our new operating hours are created, now we have to add time slots to it. We're going to go ahead and create time slots via the time slot editor under the Details tab. So if we scroll down slightly, you'll see that there's this grid that has the days of the week on the left-hand column, and then at the top row, it has every available hour of the day. The way that you can create time slots is you can select the time that you want to start the day, click on that space, and then drag it to the end time. So I'm going to make this 9 to 5. After you create the 9 to 5 for Monday, you can right click on this time interval and you'll see that you're presented with several options. Right now, this time slot is already normal. It could also be extended, which represents overtime hours. You could change the color. So I'll change it to blue. You can designate work. Designating work allows you to designate a time slot for a specific type of work. For example, you can designate a time slot to only support appointments whose emergency field is selected. I'm going to go ahead and do that and check off emergency. As you can see, it added that little symbol next to the 9 a.m. on the time slot itself. You also have the option to copy the time slot or copy to next day. I'm going to go ahead and click copy to next day. And as you can see, instead of having to manually drag the time slots for each day, you could just right click and use that copy to next day option. So I'm going to do that until Friday. So as I mentioned, there's an option to make a time slot extended, which would reclassify the time slot as an overtime period. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to create an additional time interval from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then if I go ahead and right click that and click extended, you'll see it changed colors to orange. And if I hover over, it says extended next to the time. I'm going to repeat the process I did with the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm going to copy to the next day up until Friday. Now that I've created the times for Monday through Friday, I'm going to go ahead and click save. So now that we've created the new operating hours, we can now assign these operating hours anywhere that it's applicable within the Field Service Lightning app, such as assigning the hours to a service territory. So we're going to navigate back to the guided setup, click on Field Service Settings, go to Guided Setup, click on Create Service Territories. We'll go back to New York and we'll click on the operating hours field and select the Cloud Qualified East Coast operating hours that we created. And the great thing about guided setup is it automatically saves as you're performing actions. So you don't have to click a save button. Alternatively, If we wanted to change a service territory's operating hours outside of the guided setup, we could just navigate to the Service Territories tab, click on the New York record, and then from here, we could just manually change this operating hours field. I'm not going to change the operating hours, so I'm just going to cancel out of this. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Thank you all for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video.